Hi, my name is Brandon. I wanted to chime in on these issues that are being discussed lately here regarding gays, lesbians, and transgender. From the perspective of somebody who was born gay in Western Michigan 2 years after the Stonewall riots, and the rights that gays have fought for and achieved since that time. And now those same rights are being looked at differently, under new light, with new scrutiny. See, before I was born and during the time I grew up, you couldn't come out and be who you were openly without facing a lot of scrutiny. The gay rights movement helped to change that so that pride meant that you were able to embrace who you were. The same normal pride that everyone is born with for just being who they are. Being gay, you don't feel normal because you're not experiencing life the way that it's presented to you from a normal person's perspective. And so pride meant to be proud of who you are, but this is a healthy dose of pride, not the excessive pride that the Bible speaks against in the 7 deadly sins. This is the pride that people experience normally for being proud of being an American, or being proud to be a male, or being proud of just being who you are. But as we're witnessing lately, there's a lot of attacks on the usage of the word pride and the theme of pride used by gays, which gays have used ever since the beginning, when the mantra was, we're here, we're queer, get used to it. It's causing quite a bit of angst amongst people who thought that this subject was pretty much put to bed. This is even affecting the highest echelons of our society, with Samuel Alito of the Supreme Court and his wife recently being called out for their comments. And this is coming at a time when gays have won a lot of rights. We've achieved quite a bit. I mean, we even had a gay man running for president. Gays have fought for a long time for their rights, for them to be perceived as normal. And all of that's being undermined now. And a lot of this is due to the trans issues, which have taken front and center. I think there's always been more unease around the trans issue than there has been around the gay issue. And I put this into cultural context with The Silence of the Lambs, which is probably one of the darkest, most depraved depictions of a trans person on film. And this image still resonates with the heterosexual community today. It's an image of mental illness and sexual depravity. It's a dark image and a very difficult image to overcome. It provokes fear in heterosexuals, a general sense of otherness that makes people uncomfortable. J.K. Rowling and her recent controversy surrounding the trans community is another example of the heterosexual community not being able to accept the trans issue. I can understand J.K. Rowling's point of view. Trans issues aren't female issues, and she's right. They shouldn't be the same. Then there's the controversy of trans sports, and I can understand that perspective too. Females and males are fundamentally different. Framing this as a liberal issue is detrimental to the causes that liberals fight for. Causes like racism and sexism, and that we should treat everybody fairly. They get muddled with this trans issue, that we should treat trans people the way that they perceive themselves to be. Forcing someone to accept that isn't the same as forcing someone to treat people decently. Because the trans issue is a created issue. It's created by society and societal's construct regarding gender and homosexual and heterosexuality. This isn't something that most homosexuals feel. Society's created the niche for transsexuals. It's a way for gays to conform to what society deems as normal. There's some children who just don't want to be gay. They realize that they are, and then they think that there's this option available to them that they can just transition to the opposite sex. And that seems to fix everything in their minds, that if they transition to the opposite sex, then they will be normal. They'll be heterosexual. But many of these people who have gone through this procedure and will tell you that they don't feel normal afterwards. They still feel ostracized by society. People in this condition think that by transitioning it's going to fix everything, but they find out later that afterwards that transitioning does nothing. It doesn't change their family's perspective. Their family still is unaccepting of them even after they've transitioned. A movie came out in the early 70s called Dog Day Afternoon. It featured a trans person in the movie who Al Pacino was in love with. The phrase spoken by the trans actor was, "I'm a female trapped inside of a male's body." Of course, this was at a time when sexual reassignment surgery seemed to be at the advent of a new future. And though they have standardized the operation, and it is something quite common, it'll never be perceived completely as a transition from one sex to the other. There's too many fundamental differences in the sexes that will prevent it. A male transitioning to a female body will never be able to have children. Of course, if they were truly transitioning to the female form, then they would be able to have children. And these things stick in the minds of people who are still just trying as hard as they can to go against the grain and conform to what society expects. If society didn't have that expectation on them, there'd be no need. So I think we need to re-examine that expectation. And in the interim, I think that we need to discourage people from seeking out sexual reassignment surgery as a way to dealing with their homosexuality. Because I believe most people seeking sexual reassignment surgery are doing it because they are gay and they just feel that they'd rather be normal. You can't blame these people for not wanting to fit into society, because basically that's what this is. And then there's the drag queen who's perfectly happy being a drag queen who never wants to transition. These people have to be considered too. And then there's the people that will seek that out, who are attracted to that ambiguity or are attracted to that she-male transsexualness. There's nothing wrong with it. It's been happening throughout time. And I think that's something that we should, as a society, accept. But we can't ignore these recent attacks. It's already caused so much for the gay community. It's already caused us to be the focus again of ire. Right, Christian right now have refocused their energies on the gay community when this started out as a trans issue. It's a losing issue for gays, it's a losing issue for Democrats, and it's a losing issue for Biden. So what do we do about it? We can't turn our backs on the trans community, even though that this community is a constructed community. These are my thoughts. If anybody has anything to add, please leave so in the comments.